Hello, everyone, and welcome back to this first episode of Cerberus at the Improv post-election. This is going to be a post-mortem, and we're going to do a critical analysis of the PPC's performance or lack thereof in this election. Before we get to all the good stuff, let's go to my good friend, Mr. Timothy Knight. Tim, how are you doing?
May the 2nd, so officially in the new house for a couple of days now, although I've been more or less moved in for about a week, I guess. So my office is in a complete mess, and downsizing from 5 rooms to 2 is quite a challenge, but it's working out really well. And the house is great, and my son is happy, and my mother is happy, and that's what family's all about, right?
Well, as long as you guys are together and you're
No
one big happy.
murdering happened yet.
I envy you. I don't know if I can't handle my family for 24 hours.
Oh, I thought you were saying 24 minutes.
Well, yeah.
Some families.
We have a different relationship in my family.
Yeah. No, we have a goal, and that is, if the enemy is going to go after the family, then our response to that is to strengthen the family.
I work with my family, and that saying goes, when you get into the office, you start using the F word like it's a comma. So it was an interesting experience when I started working with my dad. I'm like, holy man, those are some very, very bad words he's using. Let's see, Mr. Maloche, what's going on in your neck of the woods? Do we have any more horrible snow stories?
No. We will start to prepare the garden for the summer. So I'll disappear for 3 months from social media. Don't write an obituary, please. I will be back. and I'm recovering from the last marathon that we all attended. So I had to change my diapers 3-4 times because somebody accused me of being a boomer and going to have to change my diapers. So I said I had to change my diapers for 4 times during the show. But today it is okay.
Is that why you said we're going to take a short commercial break?
Yes, it was a short commercial break. It was changing the diapers.
As long as you weren't like the Amazon employees with the water bottle at the side of the desk because you're afraid to leave.
Well, the other thing is that changing the diapers, you just take it out and you just reverse it.
We're getting into
you put it back.
All right, I'm pulling you guys back. This is
okay.
Yeah, abort.
Okay, we're drifting.
Pull up, Andre. Andre, let me take this opportunity. Huh?
You say pull-ups?
No. I see where you're with that. I wanted to take this opportunity, Andre, to thank you for everything you did on Monday. You ran that show. Me and Tim barely helped at all. So, and you organized everything, and so thank you very much for that.
Right. First of all, it was a pleasure, and it was a way for me to repay you and Tim first of all for the friendship, but for the great work that you did during your campaign, because you are one of the, I would say, you were one of the most harder worker candidates. There's Jason Levine, Daniel Brisson,
Michael Bader,
a lot of great individuals who work very hard, and you're part of them. So I wanted to thank you, and it was a pleasure to work with you.
Well, we were imagining just how much work it would take ahead of time for organizing it, and your experience with Quebec Hydro in upper management certainly made you the right man for the job.
At least
the emails and the communications that were moving around the week and a half or so before that, it's absolutely no way I could have kept it. Gantt tables and spreadsheets and lists, and it was.
The first 12 hours were very hard because I had to fight with PowerPoint, and I was very good at it. But after 12 years, I was a little bit rusted, and I will not use the F word, okay?
Yeah.
Because I used it a lot that day.
Yeah, your leadership is very, very well appreciated. It was, for all accounts, it was a terrific show, and smooth considering you spanned 5 time zones and 8 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Right, fantastic.
Yeah, we had great guests too. I was very happy to meet all those great individuals.
Yeah.
So, with all the pleasantries aside, I guess we could get started. we did 4 Cerberus episodes that were focused mostly on me and my campaign. It was called Peyman Upfront. And I shared my experiences with the debates. Now the campaign is behind us, but we thought we'd do one final bonus installment. It's kind of centered on me, but it's about identifying, what are the challenges we face in the party, the country broadly, but the party, and hopefully by exposing those and talking about them, we can reform the party and do a better job in the next election, assuming there is one. So I'm going to get things started, and we'll go from there. We'll brainstorm. I think one of the challenges that we're facing is that the People's Party, we're still in this. And by the way, once this is live, so there's a good chance that I'll be dropped as a candidate for what I'm saying. But I think one of the challenges we're facing is that we're trying to do politics not differently, but same as it was done before. So if you fail, it's because you didn't knock on enough doors. You didn't fundraise enough. When I look at the youth, they are yearning for politics to be done differently. Like, what are the youth interested in? Constitutional conventions, moving towards something resembling a constitutional republic. They're worried about housing. They're worried about the debt. And finally, we need to confront these social issues that are just being used to annihilate us. I'm talking about the hoax that is climate change. I'm talking about the hoax that there's 54 genders, and the very touchy area of truth and reconciliation. What say you guys, Mr. Knight?
I say that people, if I sit down with people at a coffee, that's not what they're concerned about. They're not. What they want is they want someone they can trust. They want a personal relationship. They want someone that they know that 6 months later, that same candidate will still be there. They want to know that association will still be there. They want to know that when they donate their annual maximum, which is this year is $1,750, and that represents a sizable chunk of a lower income earner or a middle income earner, they want to know that the money wasn't burned, right? So the people want to know that their party actually represents them. And that's not merely when they get into parliament, but in the three years and 11 months in between. So the party itself has an opportunity to build relationships at a one-on-one level through the electoral district associations. That's either CSIS come to get Peyman or FBI.
Already
We're at what, 7 minutes
take
in.
long. You'll be next or me?
Yeah. I think that people are looking for relationships. I know that when our candidates went to somebody's home and had home meetings with them, sat down with 2-3 people, a husband and wife, a couple of other fellas that came over, friends that came over for supper, whatever, that they wanted someone to hear them speak. That's what they came to hear, and our candidates were giving them that opportunity. What is important is that headquarters recognizes that the focus is grassroots, and they have an obligation to do what is necessary to support grassroots rather than jump in 1 month out of every 4 years, make a big lot of noise, and then just walk away when it's all said and done. Because these people are spending hard money. In the 6 years that I've been involved with the association down here, 4 years of which I was CEO, there's about $75,000 worth of donations that have come in through mom and pops, and most of them do not make $50,000 a year. Like, most of them are barely breaking the median, and the party needs to respect that money and needs to develop the infrastructure that will give that to them. So are they interested in gender ideology? Yeah. Are they interested in the wasted money on climate hoax? Yes. Are they interested in debt? Obviously. What are they interested in the most? Relationships. Do you want to do politics differently? Then build the infrastructure that makes relationships that last longer than 35 days.
Andre?
Well, I think Tim is right. That's a good remark. Long-term relationship. I would like to go back to maybe a little bit more general analysis of the election. And I think Peyman this week, you organized 2 or 3 podcasts, and you mentioned something very important. the Trump effect, the boogeyman. And you said, and I will quote you. You said they redid COVID again, and there's a lot of people who fell for it. That's the first thing. And either whether it is the People's Party, the Conservative, the Liberal, the NDP, the Bloc, or even the Independent, we were all subject to this psyop. And it was difficult. I think it was difficult for a candidate to get out of it. You attend a lot of debates, so and you saw this phenomenon. That's the first point. The second point is we cannot, at least the People's Party cannot undermine the loss of 750,000 votes. We can understand that there were only 247 candidates. Many candidates were not able to run. In my riding, I had no candidate. What do? I'm an orphan, and I understand that there are a lot of people who could not vote for the PPC because there was no candidate. That's one point. But it doesn't change the fact that 750,000 votes disappeared, and you can try to take it from any angle. In my opinion, they need to do an analysis of what happened, a good and rational analysis with good data, a good. I think there's a lot of people in the PPC who are dedicated and very skilled. So the People's Party should try to form a small group that would analyze the outcome of the election, and maybe bring another angle. Tim was mentioning marketing, long-term relationship, but don't forget another times 37% of the people did not vote. How come they did not vote? Especially in the era of social media, a good marketing plan targeting young generation, try to reach them with their concern, grassroots, but using modern tools, and also a good strategy would have helped. So I would expect at least to have a good postmortem and a serious analysis of what happened, and that could help regain the trust of people. Exactly what Timothy was saying. Some people they donate a lot according to their budget. They have a very tight budget. They don't have a big income, and because they were dedicated. So the People's Party should be able to respect those people. I think Tim was right. So that's my two first general observation.
All right. So in case you're wondering, I had to get my notes to write this down. I'm so exhausted. I can't remember things anymore.
So I thought it was like the FBI or CSIS or brown shirts or purple shirts.
We're not there yet. Tim, I'm going to pick up on what you said, continuity of candidates. Another PPC candidate said the same thing. He said that one of his supporters said the same thing. She wanted to see, the same candidate, not just a turnover. So how do we, I'm going to open it up to you, Tim, and then Andre, and then I'll fill in my thoughts. But how do we ensure the continuity of PPC candidates?
You need a business plan. You have to act. You have to think like a national business. You have to think like Canadian Tire, right? You have a head office that has a business plan, a marketing plan. They have budgets and forecasts and objectives. They have researchers, people who buy products, people who say, where will this product sell better, et cetera. And they establish, and then they put up their franchises, which are the associations, clean across the country. We have 343 districts. So we should have 343 electoral district associations or franchises, Canadian Tire depots, right? And that should be very minimal. Elections Canada says a CEO and a CFO. So feasibly, if you had that core, then you could keep the administrative element running, but you have that sitting there in some type of relationship where a candidate can come in alongside, work with that team. Outside of an election, a candidate is not allowed to move or receive money, but the association is, right? So if you want a candidate to exist long-term in your area, you must, by law, have an electoral district association that acts as the official agent, the financial agent, representing the headquarters of the party in that electoral district. must have it. There's no way around it. So when you find a candidate or a district that does not have a candidate, you're almost guaranteed they also do not have electoral district association. You must put in the foundations first. If you build it, they will come. We've been saying this since long before that movie came out, right? So this structure must be in place. The problem that we have is that structure is administrative, bureaucratic, and structural. It's the man behind the curtain, right? Which is the role that myself and many others like me have been playing across Canada since the inception of the party. And that is, they have been trying to maintain an organizational structure that will support a candidate when a candidate comes along. But that structure needs to be strong enough that the candidate says, okay, I lost, but I'm going to stay because we made good work. We made relationships. We established trust. We built people who give us donations on a regular basis, etc. That candidate is the front man. That's the Fuller Brush guy traveling around door to door, right? Knocking on doors, building the relationships, selling the hairbrushes.
The vacuum cleaner.
Right? Selling the vacuum. That's your Electrolux salesman. That's your Tupperware. Yes. Right? That's your Avon lady. That's all of these. That model already exists. They would not have to create anything new. But by taking on a business model as opposed to the historical political party model, they would have considerably more success because the structure would exist. And that structure would retain candidates who are the front face of the party and eventually become representatives of that district in the House of Commons. But until that structure exists, you have what we've been dealing with for the last 6 years. There are 37 registered electoral districts in Canada right now. How many electoral districts do exist? 343.
Yes, that's what I was going to say.
About 11, maybe 12% of our districts have an association, registered, active. So of 343 districts, 240 candidates, and we broke, I think, 93% late last year or very early this year. And so we've lost 60-ish, I think, due to other issues. And people who say that it was CPC shenanigans and interference, no, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. It was a complete lack of preparation. Candidates were being told, go get your nomination forms done, and they had no idea what they're talking about. Some of them hadn't even seen the nomination form until they were already installed. So what happens is you have an electoral district association that knows these things. That is because that's their job. They are the administrative and bureaucratic and financial arm locally for the headquarters. They provide this knowledge base. They provide this experience. They provide the backdrop against which a candidate comes in and says, oh, so how do I do this? And the EDA sits down over coffee and says, well, this and this and this, and we'll help you do this. And you're here, 3 days after the last election. So you've got lots of time to learn. We'll take this slow. We won't overwhelm you, and we'll get you on your way. 6 months later, they're good to go. All their paperwork is done. They've become familiar with the process. They know the financial manual. They've begun to make this. The EDA has already taken advantage of relationships it already has and put them out to meetings and activities, etc. Right? So you're just taking that candidate, getting them into a local education program, which should also be brought down from the top, right? So there should also be training from the top to provide support for that. It shouldn't be on the EDA only to act as a training body, because you need centralization, you need standardization, right? So that one EDA is teaching the same thing, right? That from whether they're in PEI or whether they're in Vancouver Island or whether they're up in Tuktoyaktuk, that their candidates are all learning and experiencing the same thing, because you have a centralized education program. All of this has to exist, and it doesn't.
All right. Thank you, Tim. We're going to go to Andre, but first, Sue is she's saying hello. Hello, Sue. And same thing with Kirk Reese. Hello. Andre, what is your answer? The question was, how do we ensure continuity of candidates in the PPC?
Well, first of all, I want to say that I agree with Tim about what he said about the business plan. And I would like to answer your question with my personal experience with the People's Party, because I started last year to interest myself in the People's Party. And then I was selected as a candidate because I proposed my candidacy. And at first I was very enthusiastic because I was telling myself, okay, the organization is solid. You have a lot of dedicated people. But because I did strategic plan and business plan, like Timothy said, and structuring a vision, I realized quite fast that it was very difficult to talk about the policies because there was no real goal. I will give a simple example. Let's say we want to start a business. We will go to the bank and we will ask for a loan of $500,000, and the bank manager will say, "Where's your business plan? Give me your business plan. Give me what will be your income, your staff. Did you do a marketing analysis? Do you know your customer? Do you have a timeline?" And I was trying to propose this, and I quite rapidly saw the lack of structure, what Tim was mentioning. And after a certain time, I said, okay, I cannot go in this structure. I tried to propose some putting up a task force or a group of people who would work on the business plan, or just defining goals. And it seems that it was not possible. So after the by-election in December in La Salle Villemar, I just wrote a very polite letter to say that I was resigning as a candidate, but also that I was still a member and a supporter of the candidate. And I think I proved it with you. We talk about it. I interviewed some candidate in Quebec and some candidate in the rest of Canada. And I was always telling myself, okay, what Tim was mentioning, how do you make sure that you have a program that will help all candidates from coast to coast, something that is top down? So I would say defining a good strategic plan. What do you want to achieve? And when you fix your goal, you don't change it, but you monitor them. You have milestone, dashboard. Are we targeting the good people? Do we reach them? Do we see something that is growing in the poll? Can we have some indicators that will help us that we are progressing? We were doing this for about, I was doing this for about 15 years. So I could not see this. And it was a little bit disappointing because you expect to have a good objective to achieve. And I could not see it. So I would say one recommendation would be exactly what Tim was saying, having a good business plan, objectives that are determined and agreed on by the majority of the peoples in the party, the candidate, the EDA and everything, and make sure that you stick to it. And the last thing that I will say, I say that we are in a war of information, but it's even more worse than that. It's a political crisis in Canada. And if I use the word war, we have to be able to adapt. If we are in, like I mentioned earlier, Team Canada and elbows up and orange main bad, you have to be able to react to this fast, and you have to be able to adjust the message, not change it, but because you're on the battlefield. Somebody hit you. You did not die. You learn from this, and you change a little bit your message. Maybe you will change all your campaign on the battlefield because you have to adapt. If it is a war, all hits are possible. You know how it is in politics. So I think that would be a way for a political party to make sure that everybody knows what to do. And you have to understand also many people are volunteer. They're very good, but we don't know their skill. Some people are very good in IT. Some people are very good with messaging. I was translating text from English to French very rapidly. They were asked, I said, no problem. And it was fun for me because I was able to connect with the policies of the party and translating them in French. So that was my skill. But some other people, they had other skill, like Tim. He's very good with, programming and building website. And last year in July, when you introduced me to Tim and many people in the strategy of the PPC, I didn't know Election Canada. Who taught me Election Canada? It's my colleague, Tim Knight. Every time I was having a question, he was always arriving with something with Election Canada. And I started to tell myself, I would not have been prepared correctly if Tim would not have been there to say, wait a second, you need a financial officer, you need a bank account, you have to register, so many requirements that a lot of people. You were saying yourself during the campaign, the electoral campaign, some candidates were calling you and saying in panic, saying, "What do I do? How do I react?" And it's not the time when you're on the battlefield to say, "Shit, do I know how to maneuver?
How does this gun work?
How does the gun work?" And you're on Google with your iPhone, and you Google why somebody's shooting at you. That's the last remark that I wanted to do. An election campaign. Don't forget the word campaign. It's on the battlefield.
That's right.
So you are at war, and your soldier have to be prepared.
So I'll answer the question was, how do we ensure continuity of candidates? I'll answer it by answering my follow-up question, which is, how do you get people to give up the maximum $1,750? Like, people, what's in it for them? I've criticized the Conservative Party. I said that the Conservative Party is not just a political party; it's an institution. And people used to traditionally give money to that institution to push back on initiatives, ventures, ideas that they disagree with, essentially woke ideas. There's 54,000 genders. The People's Party has to claim a territory for itself to say, this is what we stand for. If you give us your money, here's how we'll fight. And I'll concede I failed in that. And the next 4 years, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the community and say, this is why climate change is a hoax. This is how you reform Indigenous relations. This is why this gender thing is an issue. This is why it's not harmless to say that anybody can believe whatever they want about gender. And if you do that and you give people a reason to donate their maximum amount of money to your institution, I think it'll be a lot easier to retain candidates, because the candidates will feel invested in something. They're not just selling, air, something that's not useful. Tim, so I guess the question I would put to you is, how do you get people to donate their money? What can the PPC do to more effectively attract people's money?
343 electoral districts get 343 electoral district associations, and they copy each other as a franchise of headquarters. That's it, right? So that mom and pop down here in the town where I live can literally pick up the phone and talk to somebody, or they can write an email knowing that somebody is very likely to respond, right? And that once a month in the off season or outside of campaign, they're pretty much guaranteed that we're going to hold a meet and greet or meet at coffee somewhere, right? Because the EDA, acting as the franchise, pretend we don't have a candidate, is acting as the representative of the party, right? So the candidate performs two roles. One is when they're getting to know their base, when they're getting to know their constituents, they are representing the party. So then the voter gets to know the party through the candidate. That should be the EDA's role, the other 3 years and 11 months of the season. So the candidate's role as candidate should be, as I am working to be your representative in the House of Commons. That should be the one mask they wear. That should be the one job they carry. All other information, awareness, outreach, fundraising, events planning, and association outside of the campaign can do all of these things, and indeed has to, because Elections Canada says the only political identity aside from headquarters that can receive financial resources from the people in the form of donations is the EDA. So why are we trying to hang on to candidates when they can't fundraise? What is that? It's wrong. It's wrong. It's wrong. So when a candidate goes into somewhere where there's very little or next to no support and they're struggling themselves and they're saying, well, I have to drive and that's on my dime. I have to eat and that's on my dime. I have to have some kind of a business card or some kind, and he's not allowed to pay for it because it's a political expense and he's not a political identity, right? He doesn't have an official agent. He's not permitted to do it. So when you talk about the institutions of the Conservative Party, the Liberal Party, the New Democratic Party, they have set themselves up over decades where they are not just a party, they are an institution. They are an institution because they've had time to do that. The People's Party of Canada does not have time to slowly build into a cultural institution because the people don't have time. What the people do have time for is a party that steps into the arena acting as a business model, using the speed of internet communications. Look what COVID has one benefit. It turned this type of communication, video communications, into an everyday thing. Right. So we need to take advantage of these communications. We need to take advantage of the internet, take advantage of social media, understanding that the internet and social media is not even remotely like real life, but it is still an effective tool. So we need tools that manage these and use these things to educate people nationwide. And you start within the party itself and you build the structure. Right. We cannot expect a candidate to effectively represent the party if they don't have the training and they don't have the confidence, the experience, the time. And what provides that security, what provides that shelter is an EDA, a functional EDA, not a regional EDA, one electoral district association per district. The regional EDA was a stopgap measure, and when they started talking about it back in 2020, it was told to us this is a stopgap measure so that stronger associations can support their neighboring candidates when the election comes. And we agreed to those terms, and now it's become a model. It should not be a model because it's way too heavy. There are regional associations managing anywhere from 15 to 22 districts. That means they are observing or providing support for upwards of 15 to 22 candidates in a single election. Not realistic. That's what do they call that? Setting you up to fail.
All right.
We can't do it. We can't do it. But the beauty is, it is not something that would take years and years. This can be done in 6 months. 6 months. In 6 months, you can have a structure, and yes, you're going to need to convince people, bring some people back on board, and get people who will commit. But if the party can make the commitment and come through with it and provide the support, and that includes financial support, because the local associations can't afford to do this themselves. Headquarters has to foot the bill on some of these issues. And if you can get that internal structure in place, you will indeed get people who will say, I'm going to be a candidate, and I'll be a candidate until I win, because the support is there.
Let's go to Andre. Andre, man, I have amnesia. The question was, how do you get people to donate the full maximum amount? And
that's how you build trust.
Well, building trust. And Tim said, okay, we can build a team in 6 months. And I can guarantee you, because I did human resources and I did the interview with people, it takes a lot of time to recruit skilled people at the right place. You know, there are some very great individuals, but maybe they're not at the right place. If you have an IT programmer who's doing marketing, he's not at the right place. Maybe he's a geek in IT and he will be very good at his place. That's the first thing. I have a question for Tim. If it takes 6 months to do this, why the People's Party didn't do it in 6 years?
I don't know.
And maybe but maybe
I'm going to rein it back. Let's not play the blame game.
It's not a blame. It is not.
This is
no. This is not a blame. This is not. It is a critic.
I don't have the answer, because the same people who started headquarters are not the same people there today. So conditions may well have changed. And I know that sounds like I'm dodging. But there are certain things I am not prepared to guesstimate on live TV. I'm not going to do it.
No, I agree with you, but the idea, the question, the idea of the question was, it's much more complicated to create a good team with good skill and people at the right place, and it takes time, but it takes will. For example, if you say you need 343 EDA, well, you need 343 responsible for an EDA. At least you need a secretary. At least you will know you need somebody who will be able to do a website, or you use the national website, and you have a certain structure. If you don't have the people, one person has to do 3-4 jobs, and you understand that it's more complicated. You have to answer the phone, answer an email, go on social media, call back. It takes time. You have a learning curve. You have a learning curve, and my learning curve is quite fast because I used to do it all the time. It took me a certain time to pick up, but after 2-3 months, I was up and running, and it didn't take me long to understand what I had to do. But where was the support? It was difficult. It's not because people were not dedicated. Either they did not have the time, or they were not at the right place, and I would say that would be the responsibility of all the structure to say, okay, when we hire somebody, we have to use that person up to his full potential, but make sure that the person can do the job and not just throw the job at the person, not checking if the person is able to do it or not. You will undermine the trust or the confidence of people. It goes quite fast, and in my opinion, when you build a structure, you build slowly, and then you have people who have responsibility, and they have to be accountable. I honestly, I did not see this often. I saw it, and all the people I worked with during practically 1 year now, they're all dedicated. They're so skilled. It's incredible, but we see the results. The result, those are fact. Those are fact. You can undermine everything, but you see the result. You have to analyze and to do a postmortem with what happened, and not just continue like life is nice. So you want to see, you want to rebuild the trust. Somebody will say, I will donate $1,740 per year. I want results. If I don't have results, it's very nice to have a candidate that talks to you, but I want results. I want power in the house to be able to implement ideas or to be able to debate. If you don't have those results, well, we can say it is leverage. I think Tim mentioned one thing, from a movement of protestation, it was activism or protestation, and after that to evolve into a political party, an institution. I was talking with one ex-candidate this week, and he said, Andre, you're wrong. It's not protestation. The Freedom Convoy, for example, it was patriotism. And I said, I agree with you. From activism to patriotism, and then you have the feeling that you need an institution, like you mentioned. And then the political party becomes an institution, a vehicle for people to express idea. And that maybe would be a recommendation.
So we'll continue with the show. I just wanted to inject some humor. Dark humor. One of these days, I guarantee you, one of these days, I'm going to die on live TV. I'm continuously smelling toast. The left side of my arm is completely numb, and now I have brain fog. So excuse the audience. Please excuse me. I'm going to have to consult my notes. Andre, you mentioned, this is the next question, how they used the Trump scare, but the party didn't have a way in the rapidly evolving internet space. The party just didn't have a way to quickly shift and respond to that. Roughly 1 year ago, I gave the proposal that we need an emerging strategy department, and because at the time I saw these trends coming out, and the candidates were running around like chickens with their heads cut off. So you had the Maxime Bernier owns a house in Florida thing.
Yeah.
You had the PPC is racist, it's white supremacist. And then you had the PPC is too diverse. They're letting in too many people from other countries. I'm probably forgetting a couple more.
No, there's a lot.
I got ridiculed and mocked and shut down. They said, we don't have the budget for that. The PPC is not centralized. The candidates should do this at the EDA level. Tim, like, I don't know. It's an
Well, if
open-ended
the
question.
candidates are going to do this at an EDA level, are they assuming all the candidates have an EDA?
That's a very good observation. That's like what you're mentioning. What you mentioned.
To whom do we pass the buck?
Whoever is available.
Right. One of my earliest managers when I got out of college was an old Czechoslovakian who was actually a student in the uprising in Prague in '68. So we're talking like old school, tougher than nails, right? And he says, the first person in the pool, this is regarding marketing, first person in the pool doesn't swim in the piss. Right. So, and he wasn't interested in marketing, but he built relationships. He was the kind of guy when a South Korean company would call us and pretend not to be very good at English because they wanted to buy something, but they were going to play the job. They were going to play the con. He'd pick up the phone and say, and he'd chat. Yes, no, right, no, we're not interested. Click. They were coming to him to buy product from us to export, and he would hang up on them. And we needed the money, but he would hang up. He said, they will play my game, not the other way around.
They will call back.
They will call back. And when they came back, English was flawless. Right? And so he understood the nature of marketing. He understood the nature of sales, particularly between disparate cultures. Right? So we had PPC work as a new culture, working its way into the establishment. Gary Halecki identifies it, corrupt institutions. We do indeed have a culture of, and so the PPC is trying to be integral, operate with integrity, operate with integrity, right? So the PPC is trying to operate within that without falling to that same bait. You have all these emerging crises that are fueled by either social media or by, orange mad bad, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You meet that specifically with a marketing department whose sole job is to keep their thumb on the pulse of the public realm, what's moving around on TV, what's moving around on the radio, what's moving around on film even, not just X or Facebook or Twitter or TikTok. And they pay attention. You only need 2 or 3 guys. You only need 2 or 3 guys. And the enemy gives us the information fresh every morning. You just scrub it, grab the quick stuff, punch out a couple of small social media posts, and then everybody in the downline gets it in their box, and then they can modify it as they need to their local market. You got 3 guys at a national level are able to push that out to everybody on a daily basis. It shouldn't take more than 2 or 3 hours of a day to do it. I know because I've been involved in it. This last campaign, I did the marketing for all 3 of our campaigns myself, for 3 campaigns myself. They did their own ends as well, but what we did with our local website, which was a hub, right? So then I would take their information. They would say, oh, I got an event such and such, and I would push it out. Use our website and then push it out. So then not only is it on the website, but it also goes to social media, and it also goes to email campaigns. 1 guy, 3 candidates, right? How much more so you got 3, 4 guys up national headquarters who have the tools to do it, and that's their job, right? So that what you find is that they become better and more honed and more capable. And when they see the reward is when they see on social media, their candidate, one of hundreds, has the right gotcha, and it turns the tide because that's what you're capable of doing. Right? But it's the Achilles heel of the PPC is it empowers its candidates to speak their mind. That's it. The Achilles heel of the People's Party of Canada is it empowers the candidate to speak their mind. Go figure.
Are you talking about the soapbox effect?
Not the soapbox effect. Free speech. We encourage the candidates to speak their mind. We encourage. So if you're in the Conservative Party of Canada, when's the last time a Conservative Party candidate spoke their mind? Never.
Sorry,
Never.
Are you using the wrong analogy, Tim? Achilles heel is a bad thing.
It is a bad thing. But the thing is, the thing that makes us unique in all of Western politics is we permit our candidates to speak their mind. We respect the institution of
quote
freedom
unquote.
of speech, right? Of free speech, freedom of assembly, freedom of association, freedom of expression. We defend these things as a party, but it is also our Achilles heel because we do not teach them to speak well. A lot of them end up in protest mode or activist mode. Some get into political politician mode, and that can also be problematic. The party structure can provide them with the guidance and the to do that. And you find an educated candidate who has the backing of his party at a structural level to speak their mind, to take advantage of the social media, to take advantage of the street corners or the meet and greets, and to know that what they're saying is actually supported. But that's also the Achilles heel because so many people are not disciplined. Somebody mentioned Toastmasters. What a terrific idea, right? What a terrific idea. That's great. That's a great idea, right? The Conservative Party of Canada does not permit their candidates to open their fool mouth and make a fool of the party. The Liberals, same thing. The NDP, same thing. That's why you have cults of personality where one individual at the top speaks for the entire country. If we're going to do politics differently, that must stop. The candidates must have the credibility and the capability of speaking their own mind for themselves, which is the guarantee that we were given as members of this party that that there is no whip, right? There is no whip. We are not all expected to toe the line. We're expected to represent our district, and that's a pure populist. It's on the verge of libertarian, right? You're practically inviting individualists to participate in a collective to support the individual rights of the community at large. So the party has that opportunity, but it is also its Achilles heel. Yes, I am John Gull. Exactly that. It's very good to speak your mind, but they need talking points from HQ, training, experience, and to swallow their ego long enough to realize this is not about them. This is about saving the freaking country. Right? We don't have time for ego. We'll have time for ego after we save home. When we save everybody, then we can have time for our ego party. Right now, there's work to be done. There's work to be done. And the headquarters has the opportunity to absolutely change the face of North American politics if it would just sort itself out and do the right thing. And the right thing is act like a business. Do you want to do politics differently? Then do it differently. Support your candidates. Support your association. Otherwise, no citizen is going to give $1,750 to anybody, because that money right now is better spent on a week's groceries.
Let's go to Andre. The question was related to the emerging strategy department. How do you get ahead of these Trump scares? Roughly on that lines.
Well, I think Tim summarized practically everything. I would just add something. No, it is true. It is true. I don't have a lot of things to add. Maybe just one small observation. Canada is a big country. And I saw, because I am fluent in French and in English, I'm French Canadian, I saw a very, very big gap between the French communication, either blogger or candidate, and the English part of Canada. And I saw it also between the region in Quebec, from Montreal and outside of Montreal. And that was problematic. It's like there's practically no communication between the French part of Canada and the English part of Canada. And I had one candidate, Nancy Mercier, who was a candidate for Madagascar West Restigouche. And when I had the interview with her before, I said, "You want to do it in English or in French?" And she said, "I will do it in French because 70% of the voters are French. It's French community. And her French is very good, but it's not as good as English." And when I heard her in English, I was so shocked. I said, "Shit, it's not the same person at all." So the problem that I see, and I think it's a historic problem. There's a big gap between the French and the English community. And you see, I'm on Cerberus at the improv with you and Tim. Nobody sees me in Quebec, but they are bloggers. They are podcasters. They are people who work for the People's Party or supporters of the People's Party, but they work in silo because I think Tim mentioned also cult of personality. And it doesn't go from one, I will not say tribe, one people toward another. And it's difficult. It's difficult if you want to have a national policy. Okay, you need to have it in both language. I understand that, but it has to be consistent. So in Quebec, in Toronto, in Vancouver, in Halifax, in St. John, Newfoundland, it will be the same message, and it has to be able to adapt because, like Tim mentioned, the news are coming very fast. And if you have a small team who is able to react and have a good message, I'll take a very simple example. Oh, far right and racist. With a good message, it would be, what are you considering? What is racism for you? And then you deconstruct, the accusation, because most of the accusation is like you throw stone at somebody. There's no argument, it's emotion. So if you have a good marketing team who reacts and knows how to deprogram, and let's say, for example, there's a team, you call one candidate, says, we will send a message for it. We will answer for this. You can give your opinion, but like a moderator, just to raise a little bit the mutual respect, especially with people. So I think that would be a way to improve the message and the communication.
Thank you. I am John Galt. I'm going to refrain from posting your last message, just in the interest of being fair to HQ. Are you a former or an existing candidate? It sounds like it. If you could put that in the comments. The next thing I want to talk about is, Tim, you mentioned Toastmasters. I recognized this early on. I was a terrible, horrific, horrendous public speaker. I guess I still am. But I realized I needed experience, so I started my show, and I was begging the candidates to come on. But the candidates, we're all men here, and we know that when we're men, when we're scared of something, we're afraid of something, we kind of ignore it. So I think what the candidates did was, with nobody pressuring them to come on my show, they put it off until the very end. And then 1 week into the election, they're like, Peyman, can we come on your show? And I said, I'm sorry, I don't have time.
Yeah, so schedule is full. Yes.
Yeah. And I really want either headquarters directly or indirectly through the EDAs to hold the candidates accountable, because accountability goes both ways. When the CEOs hold the candidates accountable, then the candidates hold the CEOs accountable. When the CEOs fail to do that, they see the candidates are lazy. The CEOs are like, well, I'll be lazy too. So I'll add one more thing. I'm sorry, I'm rambling. There's another great gentleman within the PPC. I won't say his name, but he runs the Midway group. He did a lot better job than me. He actually brought candidates on and taught them public speaking skills. How much do you want to see that incorporated into the future of the PPC, Tim?
That should be part of internal training. Right? Public speaking skills should be part of internal training. And if you find a candidate who's exceptional at it, like somebody who's, an accomplished business person or a professor or, or a singer, an entertainer, anybody who spends time in front of a camera or in front of an audience, particularly a critical audience, circus even, right? Somebody who's familiar and they are in the party, elevate them, right? Bring them up and say, you used to do this while we were interviewing you for candidacy. You said you did this and you were part of this, and that's right. Well, we'd like to integrate you into our public speaking program. Oh, well, I'm not really interested in that. Oh, we think you are, because and have conversations. So you bring people in for that. There should be an internal training program that, as Galt mentioned, talking points, that's superficial, but it's important because at least it gives them something. A lot of them are only coming in from what they've read from online, right? So a lot, they're what they read from online. And as you noted, the policies are only policies. They're not plans.
That's a very
They're not
Good.
programs.
Yes.
They're not plans. They're policies, and that's important because we have to have the conversation, right? So the policies give us opportunity to have the conversation, and that's fine. But candidates, not all candidates, but the majority need public speaking training, and every single one of them could brush up on debate skills.
Yes, yes. Andre, I'll go to you, but Tim is absolutely right. I did not recognize that debate is different from an interview, and that's something I know now. Go ahead, Andre.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned it, I think, for at least for two episodes here, that it was quite different from public appearance and a debate. Maybe I can add something to what Tim said. When you think about the policy, when we were doing a strategic plan at Hilo Quebec, we were having policies, but you have a goal and a mission. You have a vision. And then you do a strategic plan and you say, this is how I will implement the policies. I can take one example, for example, immigration. You say, how I will do this. I need to know the actual situation, how many bureaucrats we have, how many programs, and where we will go in 2 years. That's the plan. That's the action. The policies, they are there to draw a general line. But if you don't have a strategy to implement them, it stays very vague. I want to balance the budget in 1 year. Do you have action to do this? How you will do it? How you will measure if you succeed or it is not as good as you think? So the idea of building an institution needs a structure. It doesn't have to be very heavy, because if it is heavy, it will become like a bureaucracy. You want to avoid that, but you need structure. If you don't have this, people, they feel a little bit lost and they try to find help from people. I remember last year, I was, when you interviewed me the first time, we connected very fast. Why? Because you became a resource for me. And after that, you introduced me to Tim. And every time we were having a conversation, I was learning. Like I was learning the process of being a politician. I didn't know how it was.
I'm sorry for that.
No, but I think it is important. And many candidates, I think they did not have this opportunity. We were having meetings, I think in the last, since July, I think I spoke to you both practically every day for 8 or 9 months. You can imagine sometimes it's only a small post or we call each other and you learn, or there's a lot of people, we were writing some small email. I would have expected candidate to have a structural program to help them, like you mentioned, to know how to talk in public, to know how to what to expect to do a debate. It doesn't have to be very heavy, but I think that's the core business of what would be the top down. The top down matches the bottom up, the grassroots, and you say, wait a second, I have a program, I apply it, training program for candidate, but it doesn't work very well here. For what reason? But the person did not have any experience in debate. So connecting top down and bottom up are very important. You have to make sure that it connects, so people will not be disengaged. And I think that's important for the future.
And when it connects, there must be something exchanged.
Yes, exactly.
And
that's very important.
And there hasn't been, or not consistently, right? So right? So, and you mentioned that a structure does not have to be top heavy, and I agree with that, particularly because in politics, it's very much built on the amygdala relationship, right? So it's grassroots, emotion, and then volunteers vote. Why does somebody volunteer to participate in a party or with a candidate that they know is not likely to win because the incumbent is over 50% of the entire vote? So what convinces somebody to volunteer their valuable time knowing they're going to lose? Relationships.
Yes,
that's it, right? Fuller Brushman comes to Grandma Kettle's home out in the middle of the boonies, because they all walked, right? And what does he do? She offers him tea because she doesn't get a whole lot of guests, sits down, has some fresh pie, whatever, and they actually have a relationship. Does he sell her a set of brushes? No. Why? There's no way she can afford turtle shell brushes. It's just not happening. But he makes the relationship anyway. Why? Because the goodwill turns her into an evangelist. He's a really nice man. He only comes by once every 6 months, but when he's here, he always comes and visits me. 3 months, I guess. 6 months, she might be dead because potato famine or whatever, right? But it's the making the relationship. A volunteer will give you their time, knowing it is a losing effort as long as they have a relationship. We're humans. And we're humans, and we're falling into this thinking that everything is a social media exchange. Kick up the dopamine, get upset about something or excited about something. F that. Make relationships. And the only way to do that is well, aside from the knocking on doors, but you can draw them to you. You use social media, you use email campaigns, you use the locally managed websites, use go to Tim Hortons or somewhere else on a very regular basis, right? Some facility or 2 or 3 restaurants or et cetera. Usually mom and pops are good for this because oftentimes they have a side room or not a whole lot of customers. So they're grateful to have 3 or 4 people sit down, have dinner together, and then talk politics. The conversations that you have, nothing to do with policy. Right? Nothing.
Yes.
You say, my name is so-and-so. I represent the People's Party of Canada. Thank you for coming out. I know it's a difficult day. Been raining for lots of the last 3-4 days. I'm just here to introduce myself and to hear you, and I want to hear you people tell me stories. So we go back to the storytelling so that people can bellyache for an hour. Let them. And that's how you build a relationship.
Andre?
I'll just make a small comment about what Tim said. With COVID, the COVID mandate broke a lot of relationship, a lot of relation between people, families, business, and everything. And the hope that a populist movement would rebuild or help people rebuild those relationship or new relationship. And we can talk about Alberta now, separation, secession, whatever you want. I know real estate will become very complicated. And my house is for sale. And I told my wife, we found a house in BC. And I look and I said, it's about 75 kilometers from Tim and 75 kilometers away from Peyman. And I told my wife, I said, I didn't travel a lot in Canada, but I would like to go to BC. She said, you want to go to see the Rocky Mountain? I said, the Rocky Mountain we'll see after. I want to see Tim and Peyman first.
I assure you, the Rocky Mountains is more impressive.
I'm not that sure, but rebuilding a relationship based on, honesty, trust. And after that, you can start to say, okay, we will talk about issues, local issues, provincial issues, national issues, if people are interested. When you build the trust, it's more easy, and you build long-term relationship, not short. Social media is very fast to block somebody. It's very fast to kick somebody out of your Facebook friend, and you can make a lot of friends in one day, and you can lose a lot the next day. So that's the burden of social media. Let's say a candidate or locally, you talk to people and they see you. First of all, they see your face.
Yep.
They see your face. They know who you are. They know you're respectful. They know you're reliable. And one day they will say, you know what? Why you don't go as a candidate? Or maybe I'm not prepared for that. I think it's important, and we have to build on. We have to rebuild the trust. That's maybe the main goal.
So I agree. Continuing with the postmortem, do you guys still have time, or do you want to keep going?
Yes, it's okay for me.
Tim?
All I got left is time.
All right. I guess it's good to hear.
The government's taking all my money.
All you have left is time. It's everything you need.
Right.
Don't worry, Carney will come after your time as well. Yeah. Andre, you mentioned immigration. Like you were just touching on the subject. How does the PPC approach immigration? I wanted to transition to messaging. This morning, our friend David is in the chat, and he mentioned that there was a PPC sign in wherever, and it said, end mass immigration. And in front of that sign, somebody came and put like a little smaller pink sign that said, "Newcomers welcome here." I think we have a messaging problem at the PPC. I'll give you another example. On the PPC platform, we regularly use the word radical gender ideology. I think we need to get the men out of the marketing department, put some like cutesy women in there that can, or effeminate men that can soften the language. Something, I don't know if it's all people of the world or just Canadians, but I think they gravitate more towards nice, cute, generous, warm language than caustic language.
The 24 policies were not all written in the same sit down. They were written over time, which means they may not have been compiled or penned or drafted by the same individuals or individual. So the consistency may well be lacking as far as a lexicon, right? Common language used throughout a series of documents is concerned. That's easily addressed, right? You get 2 or 3 people and say, this is the tone we want to deliver. And then you spend $25 on Grammarly and use it as a guide. Use it as a guide and say, Grammarly, we want this to be, engaging and some My Little Pony stuff in here, or you want it to be hard hitting and scientific. And there are tools out there that can help you to do that, and they hardly cost anything at all. It's a matter of, do you recognize that your messaging is off? And how do you more circus performers and how do you respond? So if for example you want to take some of the extremist language out of the documentation, and personally not in favor of doing that to that degree, but I certainly understand what you're saying, is one of the things I do when I write is I'll go and I'll do my draft rough off the cuff, and it'll be just salty man vitriol, and then come back to it later and I'll strip out the adjectives and I'll strip out the adverbs, and there's my core, right? So then in writing policy, which should not have adverbs or adjectives, policy is unemotional, right? So then when you're using word radical, that's an emotional word. What's radical? It's an adjective, right? You remove that language and then you get down to the core of what it is you're trying to say. And then you're not thinking, well, I have to write a 1,500 word to make it look like I know what I'm talking about. No, you don't. You're writing a policy. It's a general conceptual document that will resonate with just about any reader with a grade 10 reading level. After that, what's more important is your messaging out in the public is how you're going to do that. I don't want you to tell me what you're going to do, because in my gut as a citizen, I don't like my taxes being taken abusively anyway. But now you're going to tell me how exactly you're going to balance the budget. Don't tell me you're going to do it. Tell me how. And that can be 1,500 words, because that's proof that you know what you're talking about, right? Right. So you have a writing team, a PR team, and that writing team, that PR team works with the executive and says, this is what you need. The executive comes in and they'll come in hard, they'll come in angry, they'll come in with, because they need that bullishness. It's important to have a degree of bullishness at the top. But then you have other departments and other systems that help you to soften that edge and modify it according to the audience that needs to hear it. So that's, the policies could certainly need a brush up.
Andre? Oh, I'll add one thing before going to you, Andre. One of the candidates specifically encountered this. He was at the door and he was trying to convert the woman over. She brought up the PPC website. She said, I don't like this language. It offends me. Well, not offends me, but it's very caustic.
That's fair.
Everybody's offended in Canada. That's quite fascinating. But that's important, because
but they're a taxpayer. They're entitled to be pissed.
Well, no, up to a certain point, they're exaggerating.
I don't mean to interrupt. I need to say this. 1984, the top 2% of the population were members of the party. They were the ones that Ingsoc beat on. They were the oppressed ones. The other 98%, where the little old beat up woman out in the corner down in the ghettos, hanging out her laundry on the wet line, humming a song to herself, completely oblivious.
All right. Let's go back to Andre. On Mr. Malosh, I'll add 60 seconds to your clock for the interruption.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Tim is right. You know, a policy should be a politic. And I wrote policies for Higher Quebec, and it's true. It has to be. It has to appeal to everybody at a higher level. We were having, for example, policies, directive, where you say you use action verb. We will do this. We will organize this. This is the goal we will achieve, and this is how we will do it. Then you have norms, standard, and you say, this is the type of language we will use, a lexic, vocabulary. If you do this, you can use all the language you want, all the words you want, but it depends on the context. If you take the example that you gave earlier, and mass immigration, it can sound offensive in a way, but if you are in a very hard crisis, maybe the message, the marketing is not good, but the goal is the same. When you say end mass immigration, it targets the word mass. It is very important. I have 32 years of experience in writing, and I can guarantee you, somebody asked me one day, he said, what's the idea of your novel? I said, read it. I said, I will not summarize 400 pages of text with one phrase. I could, or you read the back cover and you will have an idea. And if you like the idea, you can buy the book or not. But you have to do the work of thinking, because writing a text of, let's say 1,000 words takes time. And the policies, like Tim mentioned, because I read them in French, in English, I compare them, I compare the style, I saw the difference between the style, because they were written in 3, 4, 5 years, and they change slowly according to the political context. I think that's very important. You will always have people who will be offended by language. Language is something that is a vehicle of communication between people. If you start to censor people with words, you play the game of, I would say, progressive, in the sense that this language is not suitable today. And we will also censor the history. So we'll start censoring books from the past. That's not a way to act. We have to act as adult, and some material is not suited for a younger audience or younger people. Why we have a level of, how can I say this? Complexity, a level of complexity, because you will arrive with some people and you will have to adapt your language to the person and the level of the person. That's not pandering. That's being respectful to the person. If I start to speak with a high intellectual level, with lots of words, I will lose a lot of people, and it is not useful for the conversation or the relationship. So I think it's important to adapt the language to avoid offensive language, yes, but don't forget, today the Canadian society in general is polarized. You have a lot of leftists, a lot of right, in the sense that they have different opinion or ideologies, and we don't have diplomacy anymore. It's very hard to arrive with somebody who does not agree with you and stay diplomatic and having mutual respect. So each individual, we have to ask ourselves, am I diplomatic enough? Do I use a language? If I'm a writer and I have a satirical text, I can guarantee you a lot of people will be offended. The first phrase they will read, they will be offended, but that's what I want to do. Because in a context, I'm a writer and I want to do it. I want to write this way. I want to use this word because there's an effect behind. But in a political context, you will try to be as diplomatic as possible and to talk to everybody. That's a main concern. And
I'm not recommending that the party self-censor to avoid offending some soft-bodied egg out in the public realm. That's not my recommendation. Let's say I'd like to see political policy that is not doing double duty as marketing material. Does that
That's
make
a very
sense?
good observation.
Does that make sense?
Yes,
Right.
a lot.
So in which case, the word radical is marketing language. Like you
Yes.
said, now I'm writing it to trigger you. I want an emotion, right? But in policy, strip the emotion, save that for the marketing.
Yes,
Right?
that's a very good distinction.
Right. And I think that the policies lean too heavily into marketing language. And there should be a clear distinction. People aren't taking the policies as they are written seriously, I think, because it is written in marketing language.
Well, let's leave that behind. I think both of you answered that flawlessly. So that was a good segment. I have two more, let's just call them segments. One thing that I've been asking for from headquarters, again, this goes back a year, is a feedback mechanism. Like the candidates, this would go to candidate morale and it would go to candidate retention. If you had a feedback, because the candidates are the frontline salesmen, you could think of it. They're the ones that are getting I keep using the word feedback.
Yeah.
And there's got to be a way to relay this to headquarters. Obviously, you can't have 343 candidates like just blasting this information to headquarters. They'll get overwhelmed. But you need a filtering mechanism to collect it provincially, and then from provincially get it to headquarters. Yeah. And this never came to fruition. I think that would go a long way to help the party. What do you say, Mr. Knight?
I think if the provincial coordinators had more authority to act on behalf of headquarters, then candidates would be able to go directly to their provincial coordinator and get solutions. And that's not the case. Right. So we do have a provincial coordinator layer beneath the executive, but they don't carry they don't carry any managerial authority. Right. Once again, it comes down to hierarchical structure. And the Electoral District Association and the candidate are side by side in this hierarchy. Right. An a candidate does not answer to the association, and vice versa. The association does not answer to the candidate. They are side by side. The association is the franchise, and the candidate is like, regional sales, right? So that's that relationship. They support each other, right? So that either of these organizations has something like political entity. That's the actual Elections Canada word. Either of those has an internal thing that they need to answer and can't find it from working amongst themselves, then they should be able to go directly to their provincial coordinator. And if not find the actual answer, get a direct route through the gatekeepers to the upper managerial and or the executive that does have the solutions. And that process should be replicable nationwide. So if they were to discover something new and go, do you think this will happen somewhere else? Pretty sure. Then let's codify this and then replicate it.
Audrey?
Well, you mentioned something, Tim, about communication. And, there are one concept that a lot of people don't think about is loyalty. Your loyalty to the hierarchy. For example, you go and talk to your boss, but you say your boss does not really listen to you, or you say, okay, after a certain time, you say, I will go higher, but you're still loyal. Or you go to talk to a colleague and you agree on something in the process. And then after that, you say, okay, now that we agree that it could help us, let's go talk to the boss together, and we will tell him together. So, you have the official channel of communication, and you have the informal channel of communication. And sometimes you will call somebody because you say, this person has the skill, will help me. But after that, I will make sure that the person who's responsible for this task will be either informed. I will go through official channel. We used to do this all the time in business because first of all, you want to accelerate the communication between individual, but you also want to respect the hierarchy. So you can use both channel, and you have to know your limits too. If I call somebody and I say, "Can you help me?" Okay, now that I have the solution, I will go see my boss and I will explain to him what I did. That it's not a breach in the loyalty, but I needed a quick answer, and we will go through official channel. And most of the time, people will not, if they are not, I would say, egocentric or technocratic, they will agree with this type of communication because we built relationship between individual. You have the official structure, and you have the informal structure, and you have to use both, and they both have limits. Sometimes if you say, I will send an email to somebody and I will wait for the answer, you will wait forever. Not because maybe the person cannot answer, does not want to, maybe that the person is busy, she's overwhelmed in task, and she cannot answer fast enough. So I think we have, that's what we call business culture. When you have business culture, you have the formal structure and the informal structure. And I saw in many organizations, they have a formal structure, but they don't have an informal structure. And this is, it's a lack of a good relationship between individuals. That could be a way to create a better system of communication between individuals.
My desire for the party is to see it think less like a political party and more like a business. That's it. That's it. That's it. Because if it thinks more like a business, then it will take advantage of business tools in a for-profit mentality. But as a political party, they're not thinking in a for-profit mentality. They're thinking, we're going up against the old boys club and rah, rah, rah. Well, you're still thinking like protesters. You're not thinking like...
Yes, that's true. That's true. Right. And protester, you react. If you want to be, if you want to be proactive, you have to. You go on a market against another company. I'm sorry, you want to steal. You want to steal their market share. It's not complicated. You go in the competition.
It's not complicated. The beauty is, it's such an amazing opportunity that you can put together a national organization that Elections Canada has dropped the model into your lap. They've given you the protocol. They've given you your restrictions. They've given you the doorways and the gateways, and they've connected you. You can walk into a bank and they have to accept you. Why? Because Elections Canada said so. You can walk into places and go to a restaurant. We're so-and-so with such and such a party. We would like to host. And the restaurant says, oh, more business. I like that. We're literally given the golden goose, but we choose to eat the goose. Right? Use a business model. It's that simple. And I said 6 months, and I'm saying 6 months because we're going to an election in October.
Don't say that. I can't. We need more. Anyway, no bad news. Moving on. I got one last thing, and it ties into your argument, Andre, about a business culture. And bear with me. I'm going to tell a story. I hope I don't get any of the facts or rules wrong. World War I, when America went to fight in Europe.
Well, that's wrong.
when they went to Europe, the general in charge, I can't
remember.
When
they said they went to Europe. That's
Okay, so the general in charge, Pershing or whoever it was, the second in command, the person working under him was the person who ended up being Marshal of the Marshall Plan. And he observed like that the general would be doing his work and then he'd have to get called back to deal with the generals working under him. So he deals with that. 2 weeks later, again, another problem with another general. He gets called back. And then Marshall saw how this frustrated the process. So later on, when he became Secretary of Defense under FDR, he called in all the generals. He said, thank you for your service. You're too old. Please resign. And he got rid of all these old timers. And everyone that he brought in, he said, it's about the mission. It's not about you. When World War broke out, he said, you have 3 to 6 months to accomplish your mission. If you fail, you'll get demoted. You can still, your career is not over. You can still come back. But this happened to every single person. It almost happened to Eisenhower. The only one that got away from it was MacArthur. Now, that's the kind of work ethic I want to see in a political party, where it's all about, like, you have to define what the mission is. It's all hands on deck. I don't give a damn about your emotions. I don't care about your personality. If I hurt your feelings because I messaged incorrectly in a voicemail or a text message, like, we have to move forward in like a soldierly manner.
And you know who gets that every year? An AGM every year, electoral district associations. Their board is called to answer every single year.
Can I ask you a question, Tim?
That's it, every single year. So the
Can I ask you a question?
The local membership decides if they've performed well enough to be given the position again.
Andre,
right? Grassroots are already doing it.
Can I ask my question to you, Tim?
You can try.
That's what I'm trying to do. You say an AGM for an EDA?
Yes.
When you don't have an EDA, what you do? No AGM?
Well, because there's no association, so there's no AGM.
So somebody who's first of all, who goes into an AGM?
Lunatics.
No, answer. Who goes usually?
So
who's invited in an AGM?
Okay, so, all right,
General Assembly. AGM is General
Assembly.
Assembly.
General meeting of a electoral district association is held in that specific district and is open to the public, but only members of the party residing in that district may vote for the new board. But at every AGM, the existing board is dissolved.
Similar to a school board. What my question is, for example, if you have a regional association that is supporting 5 EDAs, you will have one General Assembly.
The regional association never has an EDA because it doesn't exist.
Can I jump in?
So there's no AGM at that.
I have the registered electoral district association. There must be one existing because that's Elections Canada's point. That's their point of contact.
But you answer my question. For example, in my writing, I'm a member, but I will never vote on the board of an EDA.
You don't have any, right?
So what's my leverage as a member? Nothing.
None.
You answer my question. That's good. Thank you. That was direct.
That didn't feel like a leading question at all.
I can answer it a little bit more. Andre.
I'm used to lead people like this.
So a regional association, it's not actually a regional. There's one electoral district association.
Yes.
And they just manage other electoral districts.
Yes, but the regional association is not recognized as a political entity by Elections Canada. They have stated to us that we are happy to assist you because you are a young party and we get it. We know how difficult it is, but you still operate, as far as we're concerned, Elections Canada, from that registered electoral district association. The regional association does not exist.
Okay, now I will just make a small comment about what you said, because if I don't have leverage as a member anywhere, and if I never vote, or if I never see people in public, because if I only receive newsletter and newsletter or solicitation for donating for the party, and if I want to donate $1,740 per year,
you can donate it to.
No, I'm not talking about. I'm saying to whom I'm donating and to whom I can talk to or vote on. If I give $1,700, I want to have leverage. Either that, or there will be no money. Yeah. If I don't have any representation nowhere where I am locally, why I would engage?
Elections Canada manages this through their legal process 3 ways. You can make a financial donation to your candidate during a campaign. You can make a donation to your electoral district association year-round, and you can donate to headquarters of the party year round.
I do agree with you, but it's not what I meant. It's not what I meant.
Andre, can I answer Andre's question?
Sure.
Do you remember early on I asked, like, how do we get people interested to donate the maximum $1,750?
Yeah.
We have to give them a reason to do that. You know, like if they take the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedom, the reason people pay is because there's a perception that they're going in court to fight.
I know this. It's not what I'm implying. I want to meet people in real life, not on social media or not through a newsletter. If I want to see a candidate or an EDA, I will want to see them, like Tim mentioned, in a cafe. I want to be able to shake hands with the person. Because if they come and ask me $1,700 per year and I can never see them, forget it. There's no relationship.
Can I continue? Just a further follow-up. You're right. You're right on that. The thing is, I find that a lot of people, for whatever reason, they're more comfortable just giving money. They're like, here, Peyman, take the money. Just don't bother me. And I'm begging them. I'm like, please, let's go for coffee. Let's go do something. And
but you live in BC. I understand.
You have a different demographic than I do. You have a different demographic. Yeah.
You know, but the answer, the idea is to be able to rebuild trust. And rebuilding trust, it is like, wait a second. Put your money where your mouth is. If I put my money there, I want results. That's where I agree with Tim. What's the goal? Do you have a business plan? What's the goal?
Andre,
the payback. The payback.
Andre, you pose an interesting paradox, because how can headquarters of any party send you a newsletter saying, send us the annual maximum, without you having a local association to communicate with or to host events to attend, or without a candidate with whom you can make a physical connection to?
Yes, that's simple.
You as a citizen have absolutely no obligation to give money for nothing.
Exactly. Or unless I'm anyway,
right?
unless I'm
right, unless you're a moving company and it's 1984. So, but a party's challenge is always money.
It's always money.
Right? So if I want to sell shoes, I need to get my shoes on your doorstep. How do I do that? I have to make a physical relationship with you.
Well, period. You know how much money the CBC received since Monday from Carney already? $1.2 billion.
Right. Again, let's go back to Galecki. Institutions, I want to separate institutions from this issue, because these things are as old as time, and they're part of our DNA.
I agree with you, but why I refer to this is
different, right?
Why I refer to this is because I say, you mentioned it is money. An institution like a political party relies on donation and relies on a structure. And if you cannot have a direct contact with somebody to even to say good luck, I support you, or I will volunteer, it will be very hard. It will be very hard. You know, the trust is gone for many people, and it's hard to rebuild this trust. It's very hard.
And I can appreciate that it's going to be difficult to rebuild, but if they're transparent and say, we are going to reform from the top down,
reform party,
right? And we are going to provide a model that, once again, time for reform, right? So it's already there. Don't even have to have any new marketing. It's just internal. Right? If we are going to do that, if we are going to make the PPC relevant on the national arena, then it needs to take this on the chin. It needs to take this on the chin, and it has to be headquarters that does it. And they have to say, this is what we're going to do to A, get back those votes we lost, and B, double them next year. And
when there will be okay.
But you have to make a bold public statement. This is why the sales department says we project this much sales next quarter.
There was a
have to say the goal. You have to put it out loud.
Okay, there was a very tragic event in Vancouver not a couple of days ago, and what do most leaders do? They have a press conference and express their condolence, and and I think it's what you're mentioning is that at a national level, you need to have a team that is always ready to react to events, and communication is the key today. And I think it has to come from the top. It has to be structured. It doesn't have to be heavy. And that's why I say you have this, like you mentioned, in the grass movement. Look, you have to be able to call a person in the party and have a nice conversation. It's, hi, how are you? How's the day? I have a special issue. Do you have any events? Marketing communication doesn't have to be complicated, because if you start to know people locally, that's the grass movement. Then you need the national communication marketing team. They're both important.
Communications in the West is easier now than it has ever been.
Yeah, they don't
more people for an organization to be out of communication.
Yes, it is easier, but it seems that people don't communicate anymore. They speak.
I think that's a different. I'm saying the technology is easier for me to reach more people immediately than it ever has been before.
I agree with you. What's the retention?
That's based on relationships.
Yes.
Right. That's so what we're saying is you're using the tools. This is the populism I keep talking about. Organization, structure, tools to create relationships with the grassroots, the emotion, the moms and pops who had enough, but they don't know who will listen because nobody ever does. You must put those two together, and there must be an exchange to where moms and pops are like, finally, somebody's listening. They're not just saying they're going to fix it. They showed me how, and they told me when, right? And then that's where funding.
I think we're all talking, the three of us are talking about the same thing. And Tim, I go back to the analogy he just gave, and he's given multiple times on this show of, aligning, he does that thingy, aligning populism with grassroots.
Yeah.
That's what I've come to understand as well. When I say we have to give a product, a service, a reason for the 1,750, I'm saying the same thing. We can't just go in there and say, we will fight for you. We have to align with grassroots. And I think, Andre, you're probably saying the same thing. You got to talk to them, get in front of them, communicate.
Yeah.
The relationship is the base of trust.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. Two basic elements, the relationship and the tools to facilitate it.
Look at what is happening in the House of Commons. You try to write to members of Parliament, they don't answer. What kind of relationship is it? They're supposed to give, the example of politeness and civism, and they don't do it. So if we want to be exemplary, we have to do it in a way that people will, they will trust us. They will, when you are the example with your own behavior, people will start to trust you. But it is a long way to that.
Well, long as 6 months.
Well, you're an optimistic man. I'm
no.
No.
I just no. I just.
Are you doing side trading? You know something that I don't know.
I don't have enough money to side trade.
Oh, okay.
I think what has been made available in the last 6 years has an extraordinary degree of potential, and it keeps tripping up on the old model. Think differently. If you're going to do politics differently, then for the love of Christ, do it differently.
Yes.
Who wants the final words, Andre?
That's your show. You're the one taking the hit, not me.
Oh, Lord. Yeah, I think I really love I love chaos. I love crises. When I got out of university, my father landed a project in the Middle East, and he was a prime contractor. He had like $100,000 loan, $100 million loan, And then the subcontracted company just pulled out, and he panicked. And he's like, Peyman, come over here and fix it. I had no job experience. I got like eight local Canadians. One was as young as 18, and we went there and we got the job done. I love chaos. I love crisis because it breeds opportunity. If it wasn't for this, if the Conservative Party hadn't dropped the ball so badly, they would have never given someone like me a chance. They would never take on someone like Tim or Andre that are free thinkers. So don't look at this election failure, and it was a failure. Don't look at it as a bad thing. Look at it as an opportunity.
No, it shake, like I said it before. We shake the temple.
There you go.
Yeah.
We shake the temple. We'll take the metaphor of the Christ. We will topple down all the table because that's it.
Yeah.
And I think we are in this turmoil, and real men will get up in the turmoil. We will. It's when I say real men, real women too. The idea is to be able to react to event and to act after. Take control of this country in a sense where we will giving back freedom to individuals.
The buck must stop somewhere.
It must, or it will. It will.
Well, it will.
It will.
It
But
will.
if it maybe not when you will expect
Right.
what you're expecting.
All right,
Yeah.
and we're drifting again. Let's end it
Insert
there.
metaphor here.
We're always drifting.
I don't want to get into the source of that metaphor, what a buck is, and
No,
Really,
So-
I really wanted to do that.
thank you to my co-hosts Andre and Timothy, and thank you to the audience for tuning in.
for their patience.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Have a good day.